Hey guys, so I just wanted to make a quick video about closing costs here in Ontario. This is going to be very beneficial if you're in the process of maybe buying a home, or if you're wanting to get a better understanding of what the costs involved in buying a house. Closing costs are mandatory. It's something that every buyer is subject to, whether you're buying for the first time or multiple times. So it's definitely going to be something that you should know in this process for sure. Okay, so let's get going with this video. So just to give you a little bit of a table of contents here, we're going to talk about the pieces that make up closing costs here in Ontario. So you have a down payment that you're paying for, which is a percentage of the purchase price. But aside from that, you also have closing costs, which are usually paid in cash, does not become part of the mortgage, and it's something that you pay whenever you buy a house. And it's made up of a few parts, okay? Before I get into the parts though, let's talk about giving you a quick tip of how much it could be, just to give you an approximate if you want to do some math. In the province of Ontario and in the city of Toronto, we're actually subject to 2 land transfer taxes, which increases our closing costs. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So if you're buying inside the city of Toronto, closing costs, whether you be a first-time buyer or a second buyer, it could be anywhere from like 3 to 4% of the purchase price. Now, if you're buying outside of the city of Toronto, but still within the province of Ontario, that is, you're only subject to a provincial land transfer tax. And because of that reason, you're probably closer to 1.25 to 1.75% of the purchase price as your closing costs. So obviously significantly less if you're buying outside of the city of Toronto. And this is the same deal for anybody buying. The only difference is that as a first-time home buyer, you do get some rebates from both the province and the municipality if you're buying for the first time. So you do get some rebates. However, because of prices here in Ontario, likely you're still going to pay a little bit of closing costs. So let's move into the parts that make up closing costs. One of them is a land transfer tax. So the land transfer tax is pretty much the biggest chunk of the closing cost, and it could be pretty hefty, right? It's all based on the purchase price, and a really great calculator that you can use is ratehub.ca. That is a really great resource for mortgages, and it has really good calculators that I'm not really trying to replicate. You can look for the land transfer tax calculator at RateHub. You can Google that as well, and based on the purchase price and where you're buying, and if you're a first-time home buyer or not, you can actually figure out exactly what the land transfer tax is going to be for your particular situation. That is going to be the chunkiest piece of the closing cost though, and again, it's going to be more inside the city of Toronto and less outside of the city of Toronto. Okay guys, so here is the land transfer tax calculator from RateHub. I'm just going to give you an example here. So if I'm buying inside the city of Toronto, let's say I bought a condo, let's say I bought it $750,000. Okay, if this is a second purchase for me, my total land transfer tax would actually be $22,950. The provincial tax is $11,475. Municipal is also $11,475. So both the province and the city. And this is the total amount. Now, if I'm a first-time home buyer, I do get some rebates here, max rebates. I actually get $4,000 from the province and $4,475 from the city. So my land transfer tax significantly goes down to $14,475, just to give you an example. Now, if I bought a condo, let's say a condo townhouse or something like that in Hamilton, okay, which is outside of the city of Toronto now, all right, you see here that I do not have a municipal charge. It's only a provincial. Reduces my land transfer tax significantly. If I'm a first-time home buyer in Hamilton, you'll get that $4,000 off. So you're only paying $7,475, significantly less. Okay, perfect. So hopefully that gave you a really good example. And again, we use ratehub.ca as a calculator there. And I'm sure that'll clarify a lot of the questions you may have about the land transfer tax and closing costs. Moving on now, we also have lawyer fees. Typically, lawyer fees for a buyer are going to range from $1,300 to maybe up to $1,600 one-time fee as a buyer. And you can slap some tax on that as well. And it just depends on the lawyer that you use. We do have some recommendations. If you ever do need them, comment lawyer below and we'll contact you with some more information there, or you can respond to us if you need some contact info for lawyers. So about $1,500, $1,300 to $1,600, something like that. Okay, in addition to the lawyer fees, the lawyer will also let you know if you have any adjustments. And to give you the best example of an adjustment is property tax. Obviously, property tax runs from January to December. And let's say, for example, you bought a property mid-year in July. Okay, so you're on the 7th month, June or July, you have a closing. Okay. When you close and let's say the seller has already prepaid 1 full year of property tax, you're going to be responsible for 50% of that property tax based on the date that you moved in, or based on the date of your closing. So that's part of adjustments. If I have a $2,000 per year property tax and I moved in exactly 6 months into the year, then I'm going to be responsible for half of that property tax. You're going to get an adjustment of $1,000 as an example. And hopefully that makes sense for adjustments. That's another component of the closing costs. There's a couple other miscellaneous fees that you might also be subject to. If you bought a house versus condo, for example, you may actually opt into doing an inspection, all depending on the scenario and the house in question. An inspection could be anywhere from $350 up to like $500 or possibly even more if it's a duplex, if it's a triplex. It all depends on the inspector. And of course, we have resources there as well. If you need us to connect you with anybody, please get in touch and we'll definitely set you up with someone who's been tried, tested, and true. In addition to the inspection, you may also be subject to appraisal fees. Likely you're getting a mortgage from a bank, and sometimes those banks need appraisals to confirm the value of the property in order to approve that mortgage. They may send an appraisal company out to value the house, and you actually may be responsible for paying that fee as well. All right, guys, just to sum it up, closing costs made up of a few different parts, the biggest one being the land transfer tax. I give you the resource of ratehub.ca to do a calculator on that and see how much it would be for you depending on where you're buying, if you're a first-time buyer or not. We also talked about lawyer fees and the approximate fee there. We talked about adjustments and how that could play into closing costs, and also additional expenses such as appraisal fees and also inspection fees, just to kind of name a few. Those fees in particular may not be paid to the lawyer, so they may not be a traditional closing cost. However, there are some fees related to a home purchase. So hopefully this was beneficial to you and to give you a lot of information about closing costs here in Ontario. If you have any questions, obviously get in touch and we'll give you some more info. Daniel here from King Realty. You have a great day.